Okay. How we doing this morning?
Good. How you doing, Eddie?
Doing pretty good.
I'm still getting my voice back from DecentralCon.
Oh yeah, a lot of talking.
Yeah, man. I was straight yelling at people through 2 masks for what felt like 12 hours a day. It wasn't that long, but it was hardcore.
Yeah, it was it's interesting. It was like being in like a real life chat room.
It was like being in a real life chat room with really spotty Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That was among the weird things that I learned after not having done really much travel in the U.S. over the past couple of years, thanks to the old pandemic. There was a lot of areas, especially where we in that convention center that's near the airport in Miami, where the cell phone service was garbage. I really don't want this country to turn into like, I don't want to say third world country, but I don't want it to feel like people don't have access to the internet, because it's hard to trade and use crypto when you can't get on the internet.
Yeah, Miami says they want to be the next like tech hub. I think they need to fix their internet infrastructure. It was really bad.
That up. Yeah.
Not just near the convention center was especially bad, but I feel like everywhere in Miami was just kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I had whatever, this is apropos of other stuff, but after DecentralCon, I went to Art Basel to see if I could find out the scoop on how the art world elites are thinking of NFTs and how they see themselves. And that was one of my first points to the fellow from Blockhouse, from the marketing arm of Tezos, was that somebody brought up this like digital divide issue of like, our artists underrepresented artists of color. There's a woman who was like in Detroit, sort of representing artists, and she was like concerned, that like people are going to miss the cryptocurrency wave because they're not connected. And I was like, yeah, we have to worry about that in Miami too. It's not just like quote unquote Detroit that everyone imagines as being like this tough city with bad infrastructure. It's like this whole country we need to step it up. Like not just for crypto. Like if you don't have the internet, like where are your kids? Like how can you do anything? How can you live? Anyway, sorry for the rant there, but
so we got a couple awesome guests today. Sergey from Axelar. We met in Miami.
Yeah, we met in Miami. We dined the first night, and I want to just give a big up to Stevie Woof Woof for writing up a bit of a summary of Sergey's background and accomplishments. I'm impressed, and I'm excited to hear more about Axelar and his ideas.
We have Shane from Stargaze also here.
Awesome.
So
that's great. We definitely are in an NFT realm.
Yeah,
talking about DecentralCon and Art Basel, and
Stargaze has an upcoming LBP on Osmosis. So
yes, I'm excited about that because of it was a unique proposal that and I guess we'll address that when we get to them. But I'm excited to talk about how that's going.
Yeah. So we usually start these off with Osmosis updates. Sonny?
Yeah, Sonny,
lead the way.
What do you got?
Yeah, cool. So, sorry, last week we had a bunch of like technical difficulties and stuff. Okay, Osmosis updates, so we...
Sonny, I just want to say that's not your fault. we addressed it. That was Miami. We were just on our phones like regular, so.
Yeah. Otherwise, okay, let's see. We had so Comdex, who we had on last time, they, prepping for their LBP. So that LBP went through. I think it went, for the most part, like technically pretty smoothly. of course, there was some issue. I think, like, one of the big challenges with LBP still is like this education where people like sort of ape in right away, which is, not how LBPs are sort of like intended to be used, right? They're supposed to be this sort of price discovery mechanism. And I think that like we need to just improve the education around them. And then on top of that, I know we've been talking about this like LBP V2 for a while, but I think that will definitely help improve things. But until that's ready, I think we just I guess just a tip to like Shane and anyone else considering doing LBP, make sure that like the community understands how the LBP works. I think the region team did a good job at that when they sort of did it, because they had a lot of blog posts and making sure everyone's like familiar with the mechanism, and so I think people might maybe need a little bit of a refresher for as these new LBPs come. So that's one thing that happened.
Wait, hey Sonny, just since we're on the topic, what would be your kind of sort of condensed pitch for generally how LBPs work?
Yeah, so an LBP is a mechanism of sort of doing price discovery using the AMM. And the price discovery mechanism is similar to a reverse Dutch auction. And what that means is you basically start the sale from an extremely high price, something that's like higher than what the true price probably should be.
Oh, okay. So just on that point, that right there, all the degens out there, everybody who's like ready to ape into an LBP, that's a good point to take note of, because if it starts at a very high price, then aping is probably not, in the very beginning, is probably not the greatest idea, is my guess.
Right, exactly.
You mean buy high, sell low is not the strategy?
So now what it does is there's basically this time period where, let's say the LBP takes place over 3 days, for example. And in that period, the price of the token is basically being forced down. And there's different mechanisms of doing it. The one that's currently implemented is by using weight changes. But you can imagine that can be switched out for a different mechanism, which is something we've considered. But
wait, I have a question about the weight changes, because this is an area that now I'm kind of ignorant. Would that be something that a human being, that's the hand of a person going in and being like, I'm going to adjust the weight here, or is that protocol controlled?
No, that's automated. So when you create an LBP, what you can do is you say, here's the initial weights, and here's the final target weights, and it'll change that linearly over the period.
So you have like a curve or some automated. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Now, here's one thing I will say that I learned about LBPs from watching this that did not occur to me until watching the Comdex one, which is there is a difference. So normally on an AMM, like when you set your weight, it doesn't matter. You can set it as 1-to-1, or you could set it as 5-to-5, or you could set it as 10-to-10, because it's the same thing, right? It just like it resolves to 1-to-1. But
okay.
I did learn that if you're doing an LBP using smooth weight changes, the ratio, the magnitude of the ratio actually does matter, because for example, if you go from a 10-to-1 pool to then going down to a 1-to-1 pool, that actually acts differently than going from a 10-to-1 pool to a 5-to-5 pool. And the reason is both the dimensions change linearly over the period of time. So if you go from 10-to-1 to 1-to-1, what will happen is it will go linearly from only that not x-axis, these aren't axes, but only the weight of one of them will change linearly over that period until it goes from 10 down to 1. But if you do 10-to-1 to 5-to-5, what will happen is over that period, one of them will move from 10-to-5 and the other will go from 1-to-5. And just the shape curve is actually different. And that kind of blew my mind where I'm like, oh, that did not occur to me because that's not something you have to think about in normal AMM.
Right. Okay, so this is the innovation aspect where we're learning through these different iterations of the LBPs how the
Correct.
How the curve is going to happen. So, all right.
More reason I'm convinced that these need to be replaced sooner than later. But yeah, so yeah, okay, so that's one thing about the LBPs. Yeah, I don't know. I think the people can take a look at it. Shane and the Stargaze team, they actually did build this like open source LBP simulator tool that people, I know they're using it to sort of map out the Stargaze LBP before they execute it, so that way they can kind of understand how it will work and like.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. You want to talk about that a bit now?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that now. So if you guys want, I can share the link to that. I don't know if I can share a tweet or something here.
I don't think there's a way of sharing links or text on Twitter Spaces. I'm not sure why.
Well, I know you can share a tweet, but I don't see
Let's try
it to do that here though. I don't know.
I mean, I see a way to collapse spaces, and then there's like the little on my phone. There's a little blue button on the lower hand to like compose a tweet, but we can always also just check it out afterwards.
Okay, yeah. So we just built this tool where you can you can have the initial weights, you can have the end weights, you can set a duration like 2 days to 5 days, and it kind of simulates people buying into the pool, and you give it a certain amount of daily volume. So it's not going to simulate it exactly because people are going to kind of wait until the reverse Dutch auction kind of mechanism starts up, and then people who understand and know how it works are probably not going to ape in super early, right?
Sure.
So but it's a really good tool to kind of simulate it and kind of figure out the parameters and kind of observe how it works, and so kind of what like the starting price is and like the ending price, like roughly what it's going to be. The hard thing is knowing exactly what the volume is going to be. So that really depends on, I guess, community, like how many people kind of know about it and stuff, and just like the general volume of osmosis. And and it keeps going up. Like, I don't know if you guys know the numbers for the volume for Comdex, but that will help and inform like designing the LBP. And
yeah, I don't know the volume numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, I guess I think you're right that like you can simulate as much as you want, but we can't perfectly predict human behavior, exactly how many people will ape in when they do.
I think on the first day of the Comdex LBP, there was about $2.5 million of volume on the pool.
And did it stay around that much for? So how long was it? Was it 3 days?
I think it was a 3-day LBP. So I'm just getting all this data from what I have the info.osmosis open right now, and it seems that from what I can tell from here, there's a 2.5 million of volume on the first day, 670 on the second day, and then 1.4 on the third day.
Interesting. So that means that people did kind of ape in on the first day, so which had the highest amount of volume. Right. So that's interesting. I think it'll work differently from different teams and knowing how educated their communities are on it. And Sonny, that's a good point. We're gonna write a blog post on how this works, so the community is informed and they understand how it works.
Yeah, I think we need that. We need. I mean, we're trying to address it now, but like ushering people into the kind of behavior that's going to best be in their best interest is like that's what we're trying to do.
Cool. Okay, so let's see what else. Some other updates. We're working away on the dashboard. So currently the info site is like these large chain level analytics, but our data team is working on building like personalized dashboards where you can get your own find your own LP positions, your own portfolio. You'll see how much fees you've earned, how much impermanence loss from your positions has been. So, that dashboard is underway. It's a pretty big product and undertaking. So, just be patient. But it's I know a lot of people have been asking for it, and so
this is huge. Right now. This is huge, Sonny. It's really it is I think a really big asset for investors to just have this a snapshot of what their how their investment's performing, and it's great.
And also, since the end of year is coming pretty soon, there's also work on getting, and so it's on top of a lot of people's mind is the tax stuff, and so part of this project as well is making sure that people are able to get at least get some sort of CSV or something with like their transaction history that they can import into a tool, whatever tool they use, like Coinly or Token Tax or something like that. So
wow, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so that I don't think that will be ready by end of year, but it's hopefully it should at least be ready by like April. Hopefully by
whatever US tax day. That would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought when you were like it's getting to the end of the year, I thought you were going to be like it's time for Osmo to put on the Santa hat.
Oh, don't worry, Clawsman is coming.
Okay, Osmo Claus.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the front end. It'll Clawsmanton is coming to town.
Oh, Clawsmanton, nice.
Yeah, and then I guess the big thing to know is about the we have the upgrade coming very soon. So probably I think we're gonna have an upgrade proposal on chain on by Friday ideally is the goal. And then and so the upgrade itself will probably happen at the beginning of next week. And so part of it is to prep for the there is a little bit of a tight timeline here because the upgrade also includes the code for Prop 32, which was I guess another big event that's happening next week, which is the Osmosis airdrop. So as people might know, it was this got airdrop to Atom holders, some quadratic airdrop and all that. But there's also this thing where it's everyone had to go through this claims process to like earn their airdrop, right? By like doing the swap, the vote, the LPing, the staking. And in the Genesis code, what we said was like, hey, we don't want this to end up being airdropped to a bunch of people that never actually claim it and participate and end up just being this like dead tokens. But at the same time, it's like you don't know whether they're actually dead because they might come back alive and whatnot.
Right. And so, they're like zombie tokens.
Exactly. And so it's like that's why we put this like 6-month timer from the launch day. Technically, it was not 6 months because in the code we kind of coded 1 month is 30 days, so really it's 180 days. So it's I think it's December 15th. Basically, that's the date that like all the unclaimed tokens get clawed back and put into the community pool. And so surprisingly, it's a very high amount of tokens. So
I know. It's like we're actually going to throw a party because it's such a high amount of tokens going back into the community pool that it's worthy of a celebration.
Yeah, because I think it's like half the tokens the Osmo airdrop has not been claimed. So once again, I think I talked about this already, but I just don't know who is out there not claiming their Osmo. But
I don't get it either. I mean, maybe it's dust wallets. I'm literally just speculating here. I haven't looked at the chain, or we investigated Ion pretty closely. I didn't think to do the same with Osmo. I mean, I'm glad that at least half have been claimed. Like this in this experiment. Like I think I wouldn't consider that like a failure or anything. Like we're figuring this stuff out. Like who knows?
Yeah, so I mean, this is great. It's like the people who wanted to be part of the Osmosis project and experiment got their tokens, and with these, so the tokens that are being clawed back basically from those accounts, those are going into the community pool. And so, that's quite a bit of money right now. So that's about, I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of $140 million, I think. So that's like now basically the Osmosis community pool has this giant treasury from which it can spend to do things. It should probably diversify a little bit. I don't think holding. I think if you Hasu has this great post talking about protocol owned treasuries that are just the protocol's own native tokens. It shouldn't really count as treasuries, but so it should diversify a little bit. But also, it's it should be spending these things to promote the growth of the network. And I think especially as once CosmWasm comes onto Osmosis, being able to use this kind of stuff to encourage developers to come build on top of the Osmosis platform, I think that will be a great usage of it. And then there's a number of other things that we can just other public goods and all sorts of things. So I think it'll be really cool to have the Osmosis community pool have this sort of war chest too.
Yeah. I am definitely curious. Maybe this isn't the perfect time to dive into the public goods and the other ideas, but I think that we should, sink our teeth into that and think as a community about how can we get the most out of that clawback. I know some people, I think it's a minority, but some people are like, hey, let's burn it and keep increase the base value of the tokens that are distributed. I don't think that is the path, the best path. I think that I would just look at the original intention of the airdrop, which was to get people involved in Osmosis and to build this community, to start, from a base. And so half of that worked and half of it people maybe have abandoned their wallets. But to me, that does not mean that people don't want to be a part of it. I think a lot of people just don't even know this wonderful, magical place exists. So right. I think, also, like you said, using it to build and fund public goods to create the honeycomb that attracts the bees, I think is wise, at least from where I'm standing. And I just, before I forget, there's you're dropping so much knowledge here, Sonny. I'm going to forget some of this stuff. So one thing is, you said there's an update coming maybe within the week or so. And I saw that Dave, one of the core team, had mentioned that being able to pay fees in multiple assets was likely coming in the next update. Is that something that we would be looking at that soon?
Yeah. So So about this update. So two things. Yeah. Let me finish the Prop 32 thing really quick. So what Prop 32 was it basically, if 20% of people's Osmo airdrop was in their accounts from the right away, because we needed a way for them to pay fees to do the challenges.
Right.
And so Prop 32 was basically this proposal that said, hey, at this 6-month mark, let's also reclaim all that 20% of Osmo, as well as the ions from inactive accounts. So that basically means, so inactive, what that means is that this account was in the Genesis file and has not made a single transaction since
no one's even logged into this account, they haven't done it, or just they haven't made a trade or
they have not made any type of transaction.
Gotcha.
So they have not not staked, not transferred, nothing. There's the sequence number, the nonce on the account is 0.
Right. This is what we call an undead wallet or whatever. That's what I'm calling it. No one else does that.
So basically we do that. And so the code to do that clawback, the Prop 32 extension to the original clawback, that's in this upgrade, and that's why it's a little bit time sensitive to make sure that this upgrade lands before December 15th. Otherwise, it'll be kind of messy because, governance said that, hey, this should, it's not the worst case if it doesn't happen, because what would happen is we would just do if we just do an upgrade a day or two later, we just do the clawback at that time. But it'd be good to have it happen on the right time as governance.
Yeah, that would
requested.
be awesome. And in terms of the clawback, I also want to mention this other part before I forget, not to stop you from dropping wisdom bombs, but if you haven't seen, to all the Osmonauts out there, on the Osmo Support DAO Twitter and I believe elsewhere, we've posted a flyer for the Osmosis Clawback Party, which is planned for Wednesday, the 15th of December at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This is all assuming that the clawback actually happens, which we have every reason to believe that it will. And we invite you to join us in the Discord lounge to celebrate the end of the Osmosis airdrop. There is also a giveaway of sorts where if you guess the total amount of USD value that will be in the community pool after the clawback is complete, you have a chance to win a part of 420 Osmo in prizes. First prize, first place, closest guess. This is basically, you guys have played this game before. Guess how many jelly beans are in the jar. Is everyone still there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically the game that we're playing. You can play this game by submitting your guess by epoch on which is 1700 hours UTC on Monday the 13th of December. So you got to do it by whatever. In New York that would be by like 1 p.m. on Monday the 13th. And all you do is go to t.me/osmosis clawback party and type in like a $sign and then the amount that you think the pool is going to be worth after the clawback is done. And that's going to include the clawback Osmo and the clawback Ion. So hopefully you've been doing your homework and watching the fistfights and exciting debates that are happening about all those things. And good luck. Also,
awesome. Can we?
I think that's basically it. And this is brought to you by the Community Support DAO. First place is 201 Osmo. Second place is 150 Osmo, and third place we had to do it at 69 Osmo. So that's not chump change. Guess wisely, and this is the end of my advertisement for our clawback party. It's all going to be. I think it's all going to happen. Yeah, in the end, in the Discord lounge next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
Back to our regular broadcast.
Trying to be there, assuming the upgrade goes smoothly. I'll come.
That awesome. I hope that happens, and I hope we have you there in the Discord lounge.
And then I guess what else? Just want to get through this so we can get to the guest as soon as possible. Yeah, I think that's sort of the main thing we want to. Oh, you asked about the fees. Yeah, so technically, so what in this next upgrade there is going to be support for multiple fee tokens, where what will happen is governance can choose like which fee tokens are whitelisted, and you can pay. But yeah. So that will be possible. The only thing is, currently, obviously, we have 0 fees as like sort of the default on Osmosis. So,
so awesome.
Right. So, I guess you wouldn't really feel the effects of being allowed to pay multiple fee tokens just yet, because I'm assuming most people are just probably paying 0 fees anyways. But, it's nice that the feature is there. And like, let's say Osmosis ever gets, if the chain starts to get clogged or spammed or something like that, then in that case, we will be able to just activate, turn on fees. And then,
gotcha.
But, still have the reason we actually started with 0 fees when we started Osmosis was kind of because of this concern where we were like, hey, we don't want a world where people can only pay their fees in Osmo that will lead to a really poor UX. So let's let 0 fees run until we get the multi-fee feature landed. And so now that that multi-fee feature is landed, it's possible for us to turn on fees. I don't know if that we want to or are ready to. I think there's like value in not doing that yet.
I do too.
Sorry. Yeah, I think there's value in not doing that yet, but it's just there in case we need to.
I mean,
Right.
I want to bring up a quick thing here before, because I know we're going to dive into our guests very, very shortly. But so, I may have stoked some, not just me, but we had some concerns earlier. I guess it was last month, maybe, or what month is it? It's December. Yeah, November, where there were some validators who were refusing to process transactions, or they were signing blocks with zero TXs, I guess, and it, we looked into it, and members of the community support DAO reached out. We looked at the at Big Dipper, we looked at which validators were like, oh, why are they proposing blocks with zero transactions? Like, aren't validators supposed to validate transactions? And it turned out that some of them were not processing or not signing zero fee transactions, and some had I'm not trying to single anybody out, but we got a little concerned, because like if everyone starts doing that, then the whole zero fee model, it becomes more tenuous. So luckily we have an excellent set of validators, and they're all pretty much on board. But the ones who weren't were being, I think, protective of the network in terms of potential spam attacks, and so now what you're saying is that the option to turn on the fees with multiple asset payment is there. It doesn't mean that we have to immediately rush to that. What we can do is we can keep functioning as a zero fee DEX. If we start to get attacked, we now have a kind of a kill switch, or whatever, a way that we can pivot quickly. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yep.
Awesome.
And I would like to figure out, even if there is a way long term to see if zero fee transactions are sustainable in the long term.
Dude, I would like to find out too, because I think it is. It's
the closest thing
nice.
I've seen to this is EOS, I think, or the EOS white paper. Keep in mind, the EOS of the white paper was very different than the EOS that was delivered. I think they were the closest I saw to have a plausible model for zero fee transactions. And so, we're going to take some, our team is definitely brainstorming on this, of like, how do we make this work? Maybe it's like, oh, okay, if you have a minimum of this amount of Osmo stake, you get like a minimum of this many free transactions a day, or something like that.
Okay.
We'll have to figure it out. But
that's
anyway.
the kind of creative problem solving that I think it gives us an edge over. I mean, that and much more, that gives us an edge over some of our competitors. When we look at, I think I've denigrated Ethereum before. I mean, I've also used and benefited a lot from Ethereum, but like, I think we all can acknowledge that like the fee structure there is broken.
And
it's
the kind of stuff that you can get when you have your own blockchain. You can experiment on these kind of things. That's you have app chains. Cool.
Go ahead.
I think it's fun to move on to the guests, because I think, we're kind of running short.
Okay, let's dive into our. So who shall we?
Let's start with Sergey from Axelar. They just completed. Wait, are your testnet's live now?
Hey, we're upgrading to the next testnet, I think today actually. So hopefully we'll be live in the next kind of day or two. But we've had testnets for the last months, kind of just iterating through them.
For anyone listening that might not know what Axelar is, do you want to?
Oh yeah, and Sergey, welcome.
Hey, great to be here.
It's good to have you. We met. We sat, I think, almost beside each other at the DecentralCon about a week ago, and it's good to hear you again.
Yeah, likewise. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, on the high level, Axelar network, you can think of it as an interoperability hub across different ecosystems, right? So the platform has been designed to really make it easy to scale interoperability across blockchains that speak very different languages or very different consensus protocols, like Bitcoin, Cosmos, Ethereum, Avalanche, and so on and so forth. And so the network itself.
So this is not a bridge?
Axelar is not a bridge. It's a network that consists of all kinds of building blocks to make interoperability scale.
All right, guys, we got a big brain on the show right now, so everyone be respectful.
No worries. Yeah, any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, so the network itself consists of various building blocks to really make easy connections to different ecosystems, bring assets across all of them, allow applications to compose and really interact with each other, right? Kind of at the end of the day, our goal is to make it easier for folks to interact with applications like Osmosis, right? If you have an asset in some ecosystem, whatever, Bitcoin, Ether, and so on and so forth, if you want to go and use a DEX like Osmo, you should be able to go and just use it, right? And today that's really not the case. You have to, hop through multiple bridging technologies, like have many wallets and so on and so forth. And so we're building like a full stack along the way to make that possible.
Okay, this is really exciting to me. I mean, I feel like I don't know. How can you? What would a user interaction be like on Axelar? Can you walk us through some kind of what it virtually might be like? Like what kind of transactions would we do? What kind of
yeah.
utility?
So I mean, yeah, I think there are two components, right, to it. There is like the network itself and kind of the connections that it makes. And that's more on the kind of platform builders or whoever wants to come in, build a new connection to another ecosystem. You can use like various building blocks that we're going to expose. That's sort of on the infrastructure layer. And then from there, there's a kind of application layer protocols that we're exposing. And once the applications interact with it, then you can imagine, the following flow. Let's say you have some token on, Ethereum, let's say that, right? And you have a MetaMask wallet, and all of a sudden, you want to go and swap it for a token that's on Osmo, right? Let's say for Osmo, and you should be able to go and just kind of use the MetaMask wallet to make this transaction, and then the actual network along the way will sort of route it, deliver it to the Osmo network, do the swap on it. If there's any asset that has to be returned back to the user will get it back, on Ethereum or whatever chain they're started from. If they want to end up with an asset on Osmo's chain, they can do that as well. And they don't have to think about the hopping and bridging along the way, right? So, I think another good example, if you have kind of one DEX on one chain and another DEX on a different chain, they could have different liquidity pools. They could have different trading pairs that they expose. And so they can also use the protocols that we're building to just compose between themselves and share the liquidity across them, right? Which, today, again, is not possible. If you're building a DEX, you're sort of limited to the assets that are available on that ecosystem or on that chain that you sort of build it on.
Wow. I mean, this sounds like the interoperability wet dream, for lack of a better term.
I think one way to think, also for some people who might be familiar with Thorchain. So Thorchain has this like protocol called Bifrost, which is sort of the bridging protocol that they use, and it uses like threshold cryptography to bridge assets from multiple chains. So the thing with IBC is that IBC is really designed for like chains to implement it as this like native feature and have these on-chain light clients and things. But for many chains, like, you just might not have like, the ability to add full light clients. You might not even have the ability to add any sort of like smart contracts at all. And so that's why you want to use this sort of threshold cryptography system. And so Thorchain was sort of the first to do this with their like Bifrost protocol. But the thing with their model is, because of the way that their incentive pendulum and stuff works, you kind of can only use Thorchain's like Bifrost with Thorchain pools. So you can only deposit into Thorchain liquidity pools or remove from Thorchain liquidity pools. That's it. That's all you can do. Axelar kind of takes something very similar to the Bifrost model and improves on it in a lot of ways by adding a lot more like safety guarantees and like recovery mechanisms and all sorts of things. But then it actually just says, hey, instead of being only this like Bifrost thing only for one protocol, instead let's just like issue these as assets on the other side, and let any protocol that wants that can like make use of them. So Osmosis can make use of the bridged assets, but then they can also go flow onto Gravity Gex or Umi or anything in the entire ecosystem.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I think you can think of
that's exciting.
Yeah, you can think of like the Thor chain. I think what has happened there is that with an application in mind, which is just building the swap functionality, they have to build like an entire stack to make that happen, right? And the stack had to be optimized for the specific use case that the guys had in mind, and that results in a lot of limitations, right? Like, what if you want to build another application? Are you supposed to build a whole other stack from the ground up? And it's sort of a complicated problem. It took them over 3 years even to get to this point. And so that's what we're really trying to solve for the different application builders, that you don't have to spend 3 years, 4 years building interoperability stack, and like you can just focus on building your application, optimizing for that, and kind of we'll do the dirty work to connect you with a bunch of different ecosystems, give you distribution, give you this connectivity layer.
And so does this uses IBC, correct?
So Axelar composes of all kinds of protocols. There is, it is a Cosmos-based network, right? So we are building around the Cosmos stack. We are leveraging IBC to talk with Cosmos chains, but then with other ecosystems, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and where IBC sort of is not natively supported, we have sort of the protocols that we're rolling out to make those connections.
Okay, and then something that you were saying earlier, Sonny, this is maybe just my ignorance, but you were talking about light clients with Thorchain. What is a light client?
Yeah, so Sonny, you want to take it? Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I mean, on the high level, you can think of it kind of the model that IBC works is that you have two chains that can verify each other's state transitions, right? So if you make a transaction on chain A, how do you verify that this transaction has actually taken place on chain B, right? And so light clients and IBC model is the model where you have this kind of efficient verification engine that you can put on one chain and verify state transitions of another chain, right? And I think like Sonny said, it's not really available for all the chains, and sometimes this light client verification would be pretty expensive. Even for chains like Ethereum, even if hypothetically wanted to do this. So we need different protocols to bridge these ecosystems that don't have this kind of native light client support. And so that's where kind of Axelar network comes in.
Okay, that sounds exciting. Does anyone else have questions?
Let's go ahead and move to Shane from Stargaze real quick and talk about what they got going on, and then we'll take some questions after.
That's a good idea. So if you do have questions, put a pin in them, and we'll come back. Thank you, Sergey. I feel like there's a lot more to unpack there, but this is it's a really exciting product that you folks have, and I can't wait to see it in action.
Shane, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Welcome back. I mean, we heard you at the top of the show, so I feel a little less guilty for taking so long. Welcome back.
No, that's fine. Happy to chat more. And yeah, I'm really bummed I wasn't at Decentral. I was supposed to go, but then just after Lisbon and stuff, just figured just need some time to kind of be heads down and build.
Yeah.
And kind of made a rule to like not go to any conference until the NFT market has shipped. So not gonna go out there until stuff is launched.
I think that's totally fair. I would not sweat it.
So Stargaze, they're doing more like quality NFTs, I guess is the way I heard you describe it before. In what way is it like standing out from different NFT projects?
Yeah, I can talk a bit more at a higher level. So what Stargaze is you can kind of think of it as kind of like what Osmosis is to AMMs. So it's an app specific chain for NFTs, and a lot of the NFT markets right now are they're built on Ethereum or they're built on Solana, or they're kind of built on other chains, but the market opportunity is just so big that I think it makes sense for it to be an app specific chain. And yeah, I mean to talk about the quality aspect, like if you look at a lot of the NFT projects right now, like on Solana, they're just kind of like copying exactly like what even some of the assets from Ethereum and just kind of like riding the hype, right? That's not what Stargaze wants to do, because we're here for the long term, and we want to get new artists involved and get exposure for them, and yeah, that's kind of our focus. There's so
That's
many
exciting
artists
to
out
me.
there. Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to stop you, but like I think just that basic premise, having spent time at Decentralcon and Art Basel, which is more of like your old world, antiquated, art system, whatever, art institutions, like new artists are critical, and that to me is one of the most exciting aspects of NFTs.
Right, and the space is so early, and there's some amazing artists out there who are just getting into it now, or they're not, or they have produced some great content on Instagram and other places, but they not even not exposed to NFTs yet, or think it's a scam or whatever, or like don't want to mint because of gas fees, or because they think
don't get me
Ethereum
started.
is burning the planet and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, don't get me started. Yeah, all that stuff came up. I mean, I personally tried to mint a bull NFT at one point. It was like, oh, this is going to cost a couple $100, but the gas, it will be $4,000. And yeah, I walked away.
Yeah, so that's all these kind of problems we can solve with an app specific chain. I mean, it does introduce some new problems, right? So now, if NFTs, if it's really really cheap to transfer them, then it also introduces spam, right? So
right.
So we're really focused on designing the mechanics, so like everything just kind of fits together and it all makes sense.
Well, that's exciting. I do think that, and one of the things that it makes me wonder about is like, I think it's probably important to be, well, how are you guys or you folks working with artists? Like, are you reaching out to them, or do you have people that you're talking to from different walks of the art world? Like, how does that work?
So we're starting with so I have a background building mobile apps and like mobile audio apps, and I have a network of kind of artists that do like a lot of generative art and stuff like that, and design. So some of our early drops is going to be from some folks from my network, but
okay.
But also we're starting to reach out to more artists, and we're going to start this program where we're actually going to help fund them to do their like first few drops.
Okay,
and
that's great.
And that's kind of how it's starting.
Sort of a curation / seed funding kind of function.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's how it's gonna start, just a way to kind of bootstrap the network.
Yeah,
and then hopefully it takes a life of its own, and then then the curation after it's bootstrapped is going to happen through a DAO, and we're going to have a DAO where people can vote on helping to fund creators, and the DAO is also probably going to bid on Stargaze NFTs too.
Awesome. Yeah, that was another thing that I gathered from some of the talks that were sponsored by Tezos. But the gallerists, artists, and people, I guess critics and people who are have been involved in NFTs and generative art over the past decade or so. One of the things that they mentioned, they talked about how like you have sort of three categories. You have like the meme NFTs and the profile picture NFTs. You have artists who are maybe making generative art, or who are putting like more sort of traditional art into NFTs, or selling them as using the NFT as a vehicle. And then you have like this governance thing that's happening, which is kind of like what you're talking about, of using the DAO to sort of steer the ship and find out, what do people want to see, what kind of art do people want, but also like there's this potential of the artists have never before like gathered together and had like a voting mechanism. Like that's never been a part of being an artist from what I can recall. And yeah, so that's a new thing.
Yeah, and if you look at what's going on with OpenSea, like they totally could have gone in this direction, but instead they went in the direction of like a traditional Silicon Valley startup where they're doing an IPO and all the curation kind of happens internally. So we kind of want to take the opposite approach of that and do like a completely kind of Web3 native approach to this, and
that to me is really exciting.
Yeah, have the community involved, and also kind of want to push the limits a little bit. Kind of want to go beyond just like the one-on-one NFTs and focus on composability. One thing we're working on is having NFTs interoperate over IBC. So, like a lot of our team is working on Cosmosm NFTs, and one thing I've been working on is getting NFTs to work over IBC. So I think that'll be really cool. Just interoperating with all the other chains in the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas or any talks with people, from Osmosis about how integrating NFTs with the Osmosis DEX? Or are you open to that?
Yeah, totally open to that. I mean, I think there's lots of interesting things you can do, right? So you can fractionalize an NFT and then have those tokens be in a liquidity pool on Osmosis.
Now you're speaking my language.
And yeah, we're just kind of scratching the surface of what's possible with this stuff.
Okay, I feel like there's a lot here, and we're probably going to have you back, but we should probably take some questions, right, Eddie?
Well, yeah. One thing is, you want to talk a little bit about your the proposal for the LBP loan, because I do think this is probably one of the most interestingly structured DAO to DAO economic contracts, I guess, or interactions.
Good point.
Yeah, sure. So, Sonny, you played a huge, part in kind of helping putting, getting the idea for this and getting this going. But the way it's going to work is that, so when you start an LBP, if you're kind of like a young early project, you have this problem where you need to get you need to have some initial funds, right? So if you're just doing a 50-50 pool, that's even worse because you need 50% of the other asset. The LBP makes it a little better because if you're starting out with like 90-10 or 95-5, you only need 5 or 10% of the other asset, but still you have to get that from somewhere, right? So the way we're doing this, and Sonny got this idea of actually the way we're going to do this is to go through governance and have the entire kind of LBP happen between the governance of both chains, right? So then there's just not like a single party involved, and the way we're doing it is that we're asking for a loan of Osmo from the Osmosis community pool, and then we're going to match that up with stars from the Stargaze community pool, and then perform the LBP. Using assets from the community pools, and then at the end, then pay back the Osmo loan with the stars. And at the end of the pool, there's a value on stars. So then we know how much Osmo to pay back with how many stars.
This is a cool design.
Yeah,
and a way to diversify each of our community pools as well.
Yeah, exactly, and it accidentally, diversifies the community pools by process of the LBP.
Happy accident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool because it's like basically it's like, hey, the Osmosis community pool is like, okay, we trust this team enough that we're gonna loan them this Osmo, and then so they can figure out what the price of their token is, and then they'll give us back their token at the equivalent price. And I think that's like, I don't know, just really cool in a lot of ways.
It really is. I can't think of any other loan situation that is this exciting on a regular basis. So that's well designed.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there is like risk, obviously, where it's like, well, because like it's basically a free loan with like no collateral or anything, but it's like, I think the Stargaze team is like, well known people, and they're hopefully not going to run away with the funds, and like, they also airdropped a lot of the Stars token to Osmo, so kind of already been, paid for, I guess, in a lot of ways. Yeah, maybe we should jump into some questions from the guests. So, Matteo, I think you've been up here for a while.
Hey,
What's
gentlemen.
up, Matteo?
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I won't hold it against you in regards to what you said against Miami, as a Miami native, proudly here.
Please don't. We're just talking trash.
I know you guys are, and I'll give you a pass. Okay, so my main question is a little bit off topic here, and this is in regards to, in general, crypto, but more osmosis. We need to get more women involved in crypto and DeFi. Do we have any marketing strategies to get more women into osmosis at a time where the TAM is astronomical? Osmosis is really the perfect DeFi for a novice, as ease of use makes users confident, even if they're first-time users. IBC and transaction costs just make it a perfect match for this demographic. Do we have any marketing plans? Most women run the finances in the household nowadays, so that's also something.
By asking the question, you've started the ball rolling. Someone was going to say something, so I'm going to stand down.
Okay.
I'm not sure if okay, go ahead, Eddie.
No, after you.
I was going to say, like, look, I mean, I don't think at the moment we have anything that's been like particularly like, oh, this is something targeted at women. But, I think just in general, like, I think just making things like more accessible to everyone, right, is important. I think, one thing I will say is Clawsmington is definitely getting a female companion pretty soon, so you guys will meet her. But
I'm
yeah,
excited to see what that pair looks like.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. This is a good question of like, how can we do things to be sort of, making sure we are like casting a wider net, and like using different distribution channels to make sure. Do you have any ideas of like things we could do?
Yeah, I think we're open, and we do want to be able to be accessible to everybody.
Well, I could just think about 4 women, the head of households out at lunch, and Tammy's telling Brenda, I put in $1,000 worth of Osmo the last year, and I've compounded it and turned it into 11,000 and change. And to me, I just think once that ball starts rolling, and then there's this competition, as we know, women are very competitive. We all are. I think, I don't know how to market that, but I can see that in the future.
I also think that like we're like what, 4 dudes talking about women. Like women are going to be a part of this conversation. They already are. Right. I mean, part of the community support DAO does have 1 woman on it, so it's not like we're not in a total echo chamber.
Right.
And I think that's also the solution. Is not just dudes figuring out how to sell crypto to women, but also women being a part of the conversation. And I think insofar as like we're not. For one, I'm trying to have more of a hand to work with the marketing department more, and so beginning to talk about these things. But the way that I think that what you're talking about is more of like a DeFi wide issue than just an Osmosis one, and and I think that one of the things that I want to try to frame up and like work on with the marketing efforts is like trying to find people who share our beliefs, share our values, and who want who want an easy to use DEX, maybe one that has low fees, one that, you know, reflects the values that Osmosis does. And I think that if we do that right, there will be many opportunities to be inclusive for women, for people from all different sorts of communities that we may not be like conscientiously thinking about up until now that much. We've just been like sprinting, but I think we can have a pretty big tent.
You know, this has been at the forefront of John's mind quite often. Actually, we've had the conversation with him, and he's in charge of growth, and so I know that he's been trying to tackle the issue.
I'd like to reach out to him if I could. And Sonny, don't be too mad at Cosmos. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Love you guys. Love what you're doing. Cheers. Congratulations. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Suarza, you sounded like maybe you wanted to add something in here.
Hey guys, I just got brought up, so which was surprising, but I'll drop in a word. Mateo, whoever it was that actually brought that up, that's pretty nifty of you to actually do that. And you've sort of already opened up an on-ramp to those sort of inclusivity discussions. But I understand that it's a larger problem, like Sunny said. It's more around just beginning to speak about minorities, or minorities coming together to sort of understand the ethos and the ideology behind what's being built and then shill it themselves. And when people see themselves being represented, they feel the need to glob or coalesce around a particular concept and come together to do it. So I think more than we need women in blockchain, we definitely do. I'm usually a token woman in a room. We also need a lot more like fractal representation, even for the sake of representation, because that's the start, and that has a snowballing effect that most of us don't really think about. And while we let the builders build, it's important to always have these token concepts out so that it can, it can really snowball to make an effect. So thank you to whoever that was that actually brought that up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that was Mateo, and very good points. I think we want to diversify the people in the conversation as well, and I think that's, you know, that is definitely on the table, and something that's will be coming.
Great. Anyone else want to add anything onto this, or we can move on to the next question?
Hello there.
Hey,
welcome,
Matthias. You want to go?
Yeah, thanks. Sunny, I was actually curious. I linked it. I think I tweeted it at you, but I was curious about your ideas on the Gnosis auction mechanism for LBPs. Seems kind of different. I'll summarize it. It's a whole breakdown, but basically we have, let's say, like 10 different bids, or 11 different bids for a minimum price that you'd want to pay for a token, and then as well as like an amount. Right, and then it'll basically take the median, and then it will fill those bids for that price for all those above that median bid for the minimum amount. So I want to see what kind of problems you see with that mechanism, or
Yeah, no, I think that kind of mechanism definitely makes a lot more sense than, you know, sort of the current LBPs. And I would say maybe sort of what we're trying to do right now is the LBP v2 thing that we're working on is kind of like that, but sort of maybe a little bit more in a continuous model, sort of like this more pool to pool way of doing it. So I think that these like auction systems are, so, you know, there's this like idea that we've had in Osmosis for a while, which is, you know, one of the cool things about DeFi is that we can make things continuous. Where we take a lot of these discrete mechanisms that already exist in the real world, and then you make them continuous. Kind of like, you know, AMMs do this to order books. I think perps do this to futures. And so it's kind of what we're thinking about is how do we make a continuous format of an auction? And I think that what we're building is very similar to what you're proposing. So I can give a quick summary of our LBP v2 mechanism, where essentially how it works is the seller of the token says, "Hey, I want to sell this many tokens over the period." And they basically say, "Okay, the sale starts in this amount of time, and then it lasts, let's say, 24 hours." Okay, And then what happens is people who want to buy from that thing, what they'll do is they deposit like the tokens into another pool. So let's say they're selling, let's say it's stars, right? Let's say you're selling stars, and you're selling it in exchange for UST. Let's say people will deposit UST into the second pool, and at some rate, really it would be on a block by block basis, but for simplicity of explaining it, let's say it's on an hourly basis. What would happen is it would swap 1/24th of the UST pool for 1/24th of the other pool, for the stars pool. And so basically people are functionally effectively saying like, hey, you can get the price of the next swap because you can see how much UST is in it and how much stars is going to be sold for that in that batch. And people can either choose to add in UST or remove UST. If they think it's underpriced and they think, they're like, hey, I want to get in some of that, they'll add in more UST, which will effectively make the price of the stars go up, or they can remove UST. And what's cool is what this actually happens is instead of happening in batches, they'd be actually happening continuously and streaming against each other. So there'd be this like 24-hour long streaming flow of stars going into one pool and UST going into the other pool. And this is sort of a way of people saying like, hey, this is what I think the right price of it is, and and we want to buy in or not. And people can also like put these sort of like limit orders in a way where they say like, hey, if the price of per star goes above a certain amount, a certain price, then remove my UST from the pool. So effectively kind of ends up doing something very similar to what you're proposing, but in this more like continuous game rather than like a single. It's sort of this like iterative game rather than a single game that executes all at once in one giant. Instead of everything happening in one giant batch, it happens continuously over many batches.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Actually, that sounds similar to Pylon Swap, but in like or Pylon Scout, I think is what they're calling it, but on a like continuous basis.
Right.
Yeah. And then, sorry if I can just jump in. One more question here. I want to sneak it in. If there's any more information on the bonds and OHM-style stuff coming to Osmosis.
So I mean, I think there's sort of a couple of people working on different things. So I saw the Nova DAO was in like the thing a couple of minutes ago, but I know they're working on sort of this like Olympus style mechanism for on a Cosmos chain. There's definitely I have some stuff that like I mentioned. I have some stuff I'm working on for ions, and I think bonds play a role in them. It's not exactly like Olympus exactly, but I'll share my proposal for that in a couple, soon. But then I also like sort of joked, half joked that like last week that like, hey, maybe Atom should become like an OHM-style mechanism, and I was like joking, but like the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is maybe not a terrible idea. And like,
I kind of like this.
Yeah, it's like my idea was like, hey, look, how do we make atoms like a more more of a bet on the Cosmos ecosystem as a whole? And maybe what we need is a way of atoms become this sort of DAO that invests in Cosmos ecosystem project, and having it like sort of buy up the liquidity shares of other Cosmos projects and like turn it into this sort of mechanism. I think that's interesting, right? It's like a way of using the economic weight of atoms to sort of diversify it into this like ecosystem bet. So I don't know, something to think about. But anyways, long story short, the core team of Osmosis is not really working on anything Olympus like at the moment, but we're here to support. There's multiple experiments going on in Cosmos right now to build something in that family, and so we're just here to support them, and hopefully they use Osmosis LP shares.
That's the other thing I was going to ask. I think it was I suggested to the marketing team, I think before, but some kind of incentive program that basically, if somebody participates in the Twitter Spaces, not now, not a shilling, like send me some Osmo or something, but like if somebody basically participates in the Twitter Spaces or like listen to the podcast or whatever stuff that you're on, that there's basically some kind of game that they can solve on Osmo on the actual Osmosis decks that they would be rewarded in Osmo as a way to really drive engagement and get people, like, because a lot of times people don't make it to these, and then there's so much alpha dropped in here that they're then looking for Twitter or somebody to post it later on. And so I think that would be a good idea, but I'll leave that up to you guys.
That may be for another thing, but I mean, Sonny, you can address. I've seen some tokens or NFTs like this, like a proof of attendance. That there's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I wonder if there's a way of sharing a POAP like over an audio. I think you can. I think POAP actually allows you to have like a passcode, and you could just share the passcode over this.
Like a time sensitive one, like 24 hours or
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm open to that. I'm open to finding ways that we can measure and also sort of encourage this kind of engagement. Because I think this is what really is a secret weapon for Osmosis, is that we have such a passionate and insightful community.
Yeah, I mean, just coming from the web. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I know Larry was working on a POAP system in Osmo.zone, so maybe I should ask him if he has something ready to use.
Yeah,
he probably does. But coming from the Web 2 space, like, because if you can really get engaged users, like you see that a lot in the Bitcoin kind of community, a lot of people know a lot about Bitcoin, so that actually gives them confidence to hold bags longer, hold a token longer, really develop that conviction, which then I think will even out a lot of dips and different stuff like that, which gives us a better market price, better price action that, instills more confidence, kind of flywheel effect there.
Yep.
Okay, these are good ideas. Please hit us up offline if you want to keep spitting.
These
ideas.
Sure. For
Marty, you have one last question?
Yeah. So first of all, can you hear me?
Hey, Marty. Yeah, we can hear you, Marty. Welcome.
Hey. So congrats on the LBP. I used to invest in Ethereum to figure out what was going to go on in Solana, and I used to invest in Solana to figure out what was going to go on Terra, but I watch Osmosis to figure out what's going to go on Terra. So I think so congratulations on the LBP. Fundamentally, I think one of the discussions in the Terra community now is, kind of think of it as a widget. And I did not ape in. I put in a little bit in the beginning. I put more in the middle, and I put a lot in the end, because I understood, what an LBP could do, and in fact did, right? So, and obviously, the general community, it appears, did not from the initial discussion. I think, again, if you had a widget that allowed me to invest and allocate kind of in 3, time domains, that might be really interesting in the context of LBPs. So I pick my time, then I get in, set my.
Oh, we started to lose you, Marty. But I think Sonny, it sounds like the LBP V2 is something like that.
Yeah.
Should I continue? I'm sorry.
Well, we lost you for a second, Marty, but I think we got the gist of it.
So a widget that's, where I could set my percentages and my times, just in, I realize there's like degens that do this like all the time and have, really good calendars and spreadsheets and the ability to but most human beings, I think, in this are, they wake up at 8 a.m. for the call, and then they schedule work for 9 a.m. afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So that's
definitely getting more like automation and stuff. I think that would be really cool. And then I think this is the kind of stuff that I think that having like the Osmo stuff will also help with, it's so that we can allow external developers to build out some of this tooling, right? Where, you can get like, if you want to build, someone can go build a stop order system, right? Using Osmo.zone, or someone can go build a liquidity, like a Yearn style product that like automates people's liquidity management and things like that. So that's sort of, I think a lot of this will, be able to start to come from external contributors as well.
That's the dream.
Totally understand. I totally understand that argument, and all I'm saying is that this is like a widget. This is very simple, and this may be something that again goes in the public domain that everybody can copy. The psychology of humanity is such that if they have a good example, then they want to duplicate the good example. So that's like first thing. Can I bring up another issue?
I think we're running long, so this should be maybe the last one.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I was a backer of your idea of having, Cosmos doing something new, and I understand your argument of the weight and mass of Atom, ATOM, but my concern with Atom is unless it gets something good going inside of it that is across, the whole system, its first derivative compared to other systems is actually declining. Yes, it has mass, but the first derivative of that mass is declining. It's not acceptable.
Right, and I think that's what a lot of people within the ecosystem, including me and many others, we're trying to figure that out. How do we get that second derivative to be positive so we can reverse that eventually?
Yep. Thank you very much.
For sure. And then I guess one last.
Marty.
I just want to give Amber a chance to talk. And Amber, congrats on joining Puma, because I'm a big fan of them and I've been friends with Yuri for a while. So, yeah, do you have anything you want to add?
Hi, Amber.
I think she's having connection issues.
Maybe she's in Miami. Sorry, Mateo.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
I thought we were good.
No, we're good. I'm just making sure you're still tuned in.
Yeah, we're working fine just down here.
Yeah, you actually sound great. So
thank you.
It looks like Amber is not connected here. Maybe we can have her back next week.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sweet. All right. That was definitely a long episode. So
yeah, it's a marathon episode. So thanks everybody for sticking
making
with
up for lost time last
really
week.
Good. Yeah. That's a good point, Eddie. We did last week was cut short, so this kind of the universe is balanced.
Is this working?
Oh yes, welcome,
yeah,
Amber.
Awesome. I'm on some very weird hotel Wi-Fi in New York. Just wanted to say thank you for everybody who's building this. I was holding a different kind of token, and my friend Pam was like, hey, you should look at the returns in this interesting lab zone thing. And I kind of aped in and was like, yes, this is amazing. And then I ended up going to Lisbon and checking out the conference and meeting a bunch of people.
Oh, awesome.
And super excited participating in the hackathon. Just submitted our project last night, super late. And I think the best thing about this whole ecosystem is that it's really approachable. Like I've seen a lot of different people just sit down and be like, you're getting very little % return in your bank, but here's this weird laboratory where you can like buy a thing and then suddenly get a return, and then there's like more interesting things. And I just also want to say that I'm really excited about Stargaze. I give a lot of talks at, like, I have a different account that does like music and film and art, but I end up giving a lot of talks to like community colleges and like low income communities about crypto so that they don't like lose all their money in fiat with inflation. And I found yeah, it's fun. So I found all of these people initially being like really cranky about the Ethereum system because it's kind of inapproachable and inaccessible, and then also like being super flummoxed by DOT because of like the extraordinary amount of terminology. And then I can just take them in here and be like, look what you can do, and they'll be like a little reticent at first, and then they'll have fun and play with it. I find that like the best approach is just to like turn people into kids on a playground and like get them excited, and treat everybody as just like kind of a fun companion that you're teaching how to use the monkey bars for the first time. Like you're gonna get a few bars in maybe, and then maybe one day you'll get like the full bars, and then there'll be more bars added. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. When I went to the conference in Lisbon, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen anything this exciting in 10 years. So it kind of like, I don't know, resuscitated my excitement for the world. So just want to say thanks.
Wow, thank you. That's the best endorsement I've ever heard of Osmosis.
Cool. Thank you. I kid you not, 2 days ago, I actually replaced the default browser on my phone with Puma. So we're still in the test run phase. So we'll see how it works out. Anyways, cool. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. This was great.
We'll see you.
A great way to round it out.
Thank you.
And,
see you next week for the party.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, next week we have the clawback party. So please put in your guesses about how much will be in the community pool when the clawback is done. And thanks to everybody, all the folks who had stunning questions, and our guests. We thank you, and we look forward to hanging with you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.